Thank you. Very interesting question. For me, I would say probably when we talk about extremism, it may be someone who is an extremist in Norway or Denmark, Ku Klux Klan, someone who is a Nazi, someone who is anti-immigrant, or radical Muslim. Psychologically, interestingly, all of these things operate on a similar level. The psychological structure of being attracted to a fringe somehow remains the same. When you say the educated British, I would say the educated European, the educated Americans, right? So this question is much wider in its impact. When you look at a Muslim involved in an act of extremism, or as per se anyone else, there are different variations, different tiers of radicalism and extremism. Radicalism on its own, that's not a bad word. Most of the British universities, most of the global universities, they say we're very radical in our thought. Radical is good. Someone with a fresh mindset, someone with a challenging question. But when a radical question becomes a violent question, there things go wrong. So there could be few Muslims, or there could be, for example, I give you an example. You might have heard of Greenpeace. Now, Greenpeace is an organization which works on global warming. Someone who is a member of Greenpeace is a member, feels good about it, believes they are doing good work. Good enough. There's another member. He or she believes, oh yes, the world is in real danger. Let's do something about it. So he or she goes out, posts messages on Twitter, Facebook. Then there's another member who believes, oh no, that's not enough. Nothing is changing. Would be writing letter to MP or Lord or a magazine editor, or speaking to a group of people, let's do something, the world is in danger. And then there is another member who will say, no, nothing is happening. No email, no message, no Facebook, no Twitter. Let's take some action. Now next time when something happens against it, we are going to block the road. We are going to take action. We are going to throw eggs or stones, right? And someone else who says, no, that's not going to do the work. Let's actually do the real work. Let's plant a bomb in that ship, in that factory, in that place where which is causing the global warming. Now, as you can see, there are all these tiers. It is happening. People are different tiers. They are radical. They are extremists. But at the same time, it becomes a problem when it becomes violent. So extremism and violent extremism, that has a psychology behind it. And as I said, any kind of radical, any kind of extremist could be sharing the same wavelength in terms of violence. Psychology. Every human being needs a purpose. Maslow's hierarchy, that's one of the most famous psychologists. He establishes that the human beings, they have a fundamental question, and that is the purpose of existence. So every human being asks herself, himself, themselves, why are we here? And when they don't find the question, they try to scratch the question. And while they're doing it, there's a structure involved. Now, psychologically, that structure is very important. I'm sure they'll be answering many questions. First of all is antecedent. Antecedent is based on which group are you from. And there are two main distributions, in group or out group. Are you from my group or are you in their group? So once I know that you are in their group, you're different from me. It could be my color, it could be my religion, it could be my ethnicity, it could be anything. Once the antecedent is established, the next thing is the individual differences. Now individually, everyone is different. Like you are different, I am a different guy. Every one of us, we have a different psychological DNA. If I'm a weaker person or a stronger person, a confident person, or a follower or a leader, there could be so many variations. If I have a troubled history, if I have a troubled past, if I come from a broken family, if I come from a humble background, if I loads more challenges in life, I am going to be a different person, and my individual differences would be making me prone to the message I receive. Now, this is the second step. The third step is, here we're talking about triggers. Something happens. Something, or some incident or some accident takes place. Something happens in the USA. Donald Trump says something in the USA. The Belgian or French Prime Minister says something in their respective countries. Or Prime Minister Modi says something in India. Or actually some accident happens. Someone blasts a bomb in a market. Or two jets clash. Or they run into the Twin Towers. These are triggers. When the triggers happen, actually that's the time when the individual differences, which already exist in fact, the triggers throw the seed. And immediately we have a fertile ground now. If I'm a weaker person, and I'm prone to the judgments or the visions or fatwas or opinions around myself, now there's a ground. The next thing is the process, which could be a process of grooming, a process of radicalization. Now, if I'm a weaker person psychologically, something has happened, and I feel bad about it, and I want to do something about it. An American gunship bombs a wedding in Afghanistan, killing 200 people. An Israeli jet bombs somewhere in Palestine, killing 500 people. Children, women. And when I'm looking at those videos, those photos, I have a problem. I feel there is an issue. And if I am that kind of person individually, someone can engage me in a process. That's someone who could be a religious leader, could be my elder brother, could be my friend, could be someone online, could be on video, anywhere. And now this is the process. And at the end of the process, there's an outcome. If the outcome is violent, that means that psychologically that person has been radicalized.
And what sort of people are more prone to extremism or religious extremism?
Well, psychologically, as I said, we don't differentiate between extremism and religious extremism. It's the same thing. Those people who are weaker persons, weaker personalities, those people who want acceptance, those people who want a stamp, those people who are looking for identity, and they are struggling to find a purpose in life. Mostly you would find those people who are less successful compared to others. They say, if you have more reasons to live, you have less reasons to die. But if you have more reasons to die, then simultaneously you have less reasons to live. Now, it could be a love affair. It could be love or hate of anyone. Psychologically, the triggers are same. If we have a weaker person on hands, with a troubled past, with some problems in the background, that's a fertile ground. And anyone can take advantage of the process, sow the seed, and actually, through this process, further his or her agenda. Now, he's war against something which is a question mark, because if you say, the USA or the ISAF forces, 200,000 paramilitary forces are going to fight extremism, which is a question, which is a vague term, which is a gray area. You don't know. When you say one country invaded another, you know what's happening. When you say extremism, nobody understands what's going on, in fact. And that's a very psychologically a confusing situation. So, yes, this is an ideology. And an ideology could be only defeated when you have a counter narrative. It is a narrative. If you have a counter narrative, it may work. If you have a bullet, it's not going to work. Why people lose their reasons to live? Why people would find it easier to die instead of living? Why people would kill people just like themselves? Why a peaceful person would swing to the fringe, left or right, and do something so catastrophic that everyone is shocked? Why a child who would be even caring to dogs and cats while being brought up would one day blow up in a market, killing 100 people? Now that is a question mark. That depends upon the individual differences, where political and religious ideology is utilized as a weapon. Here we shouldn't forget the whole breed of religious extremism was nurtured in 1980s when the United States wanted to combat the evil empire of Soviet Union. So this whole ideology was manufactured in CIA's laboratory, a scientific laboratory in fact, as a narrative. Now those people who believe in political Islam, they believe this is downtime. We have conquered and ruled the world and now we are suppressed. And if you pick up this ideology and you start talking about it, and then the individual differences and the triggers and the process and everything combines, you have a violent and angry person on your hands. And if someone is going to exploit or manipulate that violent or angry person, here we go. You have an extremist on your hands. Psychologically speaking, ideology cannot be suppressed until it is replaced with a better narrative. So all the might, all the war, all the defense forces or missiles or paramilitary forces are in fact, unfortunately, not going to do any wonders until and unless we have a counter narrative of existence, where people find reasons to live, where they believe they have a future, where they believe they have an identity and no one has a problem with it, where they believe there's some justice and they could find justice and they have a good chance of developing themselves, engaging themselves and prospering in life. Once it happens, you steal the thunder from extremism. It's a very interesting question. In fact, most of the immigrants, they are uprooted and psychologically they are living in two separate worlds. It's like you might have heard of an expression, back home. Now, people living in another country for the last 30, 40, 50 years saying back home, it clearly reflects that psychologically home is still over there. Now, that is a problem. When the first and second and third generations of immigrants, they are in fact nurtured in an alien land, their parents are kind of up in the air, a little lost in identity and where the home is. The first, second, and third generations, they are now grappling with the prejudice, with the bias, with the differences, with particularly when it's a matter of skin, when it's a matter of religious identity, things become obvious. Now, the young people, the question is, are they engaged with the mainstream population? Do they understand the mainstream culture? And as I said, the first thing, in mine and yours, two differences. Are you with me? Are you against me? Are you getting along with me? Are you not part of mine culture, identity, or whatever? Now, if the difference is grounded, unfortunately, that's where most of the things go wrong. We need people to integrate because most of us are actually the same. The more we are different, the more we are same as human beings. And the young people, they need to engage with the mainstream population. They need to engage with the mainstream culture. They need not to embrace, maybe. They can keep their identity, but at the same time, they need to get along. The more we push people in their ghettos, in their subcultures, we create walls which become unbridgeable.